Today, I want to talk about a ship that became canon almost 13 years ago for a manga that is considered one of the most popular manga in the world. And this manga ended back in 2013, and it is known around the world as Naruto. Naruto became a huge and a popular hit among anime and manga fans for much of the 2000s. It is considered one of the big three of the Shonen Jump, basically golden era during the 2000s. And for me, I enjoyed it thoroughly and thought the pain arc was the peak of Naruto. After that, I thought that it basically just kept going down and down for me to the point that I only kept up with it to see how it ended. But I want to talk about the ship that became canon in Naruto, and that is Naruto and Hinata. And this isn't going to be a video discussing why, for whatever reason, I think that Naruto and Hinata shouldn't have become canon, because in fact, I thought that it was perfectly fine. I thought the choices that was presented by Masashi Kishimoto for who Naruto would end up with were both fine, whoever would have eventually it be. But I want to talk about specifically Naruto Hinata because one, it is the canon ship, but also why I thought that despite being completely okay with it being the canon ending for Naruto in terms of his romantic partner, I do not believe it was really well handled by Masashi Kishimoto. And most of that comes from the fact that he was not very good at writing romance, and this started really early on. Like, I'm talking about like during the concept arc phase, or like, him just thinking of the ideas for Naruto because of an interview he did about, I would say, about maybe a year after Naruto ended, where he specifically stated certain things that to me made sense because of how the progress of romance occurred throughout the entire story of Naruto. And that's what this video is going to be about, why I thought that his romance writing for Naruto Hinata was not as good as people probably remembered it. It's not to dissuade you or to try to tell you that it was a shit ship, it was a very poorly written ship. It is to say that it had a lot of great potential. The problem was a very specific thing that many authors do not even realize you need. Something very, very important for any ship in any sort of romance writing you're going to write. And the key thing is time. So why is time important? Well, time is important because if you have your characters that you are planning to make canon at the end of the series, it needs to have a development cycle throughout the entire story where time is a very important key for these two characters. By time, I mean the time spent with those characters together within the story. The more time you have with these characters together, the more realistic, the more convincing your ship can be when you make it canon at the end. The problem with Naruto Hinata isn't the fact that it became canon at the end. It had very big moments between them spread throughout the story. These very big key shipping moments are what sell the ship to people, as well as Hinata's crush on Naruto. These moments are huge. These moments are big, from Hinata protecting Naruto during the pain arc, to them holding hands during the final war, to the last Naruto movie, where it was basically just a full-blown Naruto Hinata fan fest. But the key thing, as I said, is time. And throughout the manga, while you do have those big key moments, you're missing something very vital. And that is those smaller moments. A lot of people think that whenever you're trying to write romance or trying to write a ship, people think that you just need those big moments. But that is not true. You have those big moments to give you that explosive, moments throughout the story that showcases just how much you want to push that ship. The problem with Naruto Hinata is that those moments are spread out throughout the manga in spurts. But between those key moments, between those big moments, you don't have the time. You don't have Naruto spending time with Hinata, or Hinata spending time with Naruto, or them communicating with each other. You may have some in like maybe the anime filler, or you may have like really small moments that just appear pop up here and now and then. But you need those smaller moments, those really small moments that are spread throughout the manga that make those bigger moments pop. And that is what Naruto Hinata does not have. I think a lot of authors, specifically shonen authors, don't really know how to write romance, because a lot of the times whenever people write romance, it comes from experience. Usually whenever you're writing anything, experience is always important. When you have experience, you know how a character is supposed to feel. You know how those moments are supposed to make not only the characters feel, but the readers themselves feel. A lot of shonen authors may or may not have those moments where they've ever been in a romantic setting. Even authors that are married and happily have kids and stuff like that, you may not understand like the very basics of like those romantic moments you may have with your partner. But you understand the emotions that you had during those moments. That heart racing moment, that cheeks flush, your body getting warm at the sight of the person you are in love with, or the person you have a crush on. You know, that warm feeling in your chest, around your body, whenever you see them smile, whenever you hear them laugh. All of that is key experience to basically writing any sort of romance. And a lot of authors tend to forget about that whenever they're writing characters, and I don't necessarily understand why. It is very important that time is essential to any ship, no matter what kind of ship it is. Time is important. It needs to be spread out through the entire story. You cannot just leave it for those big moments. Those big moments, as big as they are, as exciting they are, don't necessarily work if you don't have those smaller moments that lead up to it. And it's essential for that. It is very essential to have those bigger moments get so much more impact from those smaller ones. As we go through the entire story of Naruto, you have moments where, Naruto and Hinata interact, starting with the Chunin exams, when she, blushes around him, when you see that she has a crush on her, you see her getting the medicine to him, and then you have, after that, not necessarily anything, honestly. After that, you just have some anime filler arc. You don't necessarily have anything much bigger than that. And after that goes into the Sasuke retrieval arc, and then that's it. Then we move on to Naruto Shippuden. And even then, you don't have much of anything between them until, Naruto returns to the village after he saves Gaara. And then you have that one moment with Naruto and Hinata meet after, not seeing each other for 2 years. And then after that, nothing between them, nothing at all. And then you go into the pain arc, and then you have that big moment where she confesses, at least from what I can remember. I apologize if I'm missing a certain scene there. But after that pain arc, you then go into the final war. The problem is that there should have been a conversation, there should have been some sort of interaction between Naruto and Hinata after that moment, after the pain arc moment. But there wasn't any. It wasn't until the final war where they finally interacted again. They hold hands, especially after Neji died. They hold hands, and then they have that moment, and then nothing. There was nothing there. You actually have smaller moments with Naruto and Sakura more. Now granted, it is because Sakura was more of the heroine of the series, but at the same time, you could have sprinkled in some moments between Naruto and Hinata. But you see just how much big of a gap between these moments are. There's so much more of a bigger gap that we're essentially missing those smaller moments. Those bigger moments just don't feel as impactful unless you're a Naruto Hinata shipper. But you need those smaller moments sprinkled out. Basically, you need substance for your big moments, and the way you get that substance is by creating these smaller moments throughout your manga, throughout your story. I'm not saying that you have to insert some of these romantic smaller moments within the story. That's ridiculous, because you can't do that. That's just forcing something. You could have it by having these characters interact a lot more. You could have them have smaller moments, just conversing with each other, having to just hang out at some point in between, the big plot lines. You just have them talk to each other, have them be emotionally invested in what the other character is doing. These smaller moments, and then you can actually see that flow throughout the entire story that leads up to these bigger moments, and then it showcases just how natural their relationship has grown. It's why the childhood friend to lover trope is one of the most popular tropes of all time. It's because you see how it naturally grows through time. Time is very key. Even a trope like enemies to lovers, what does that trope require? It requires not only having an enemy become, the lover of the character, but it needs time for those characters to know each other, to get to know each other, to see the good in them, to see that, oh, maybe they aren't so bad after all. Maybe, they're not as cringe, or, maybe they're not as, the good, a Boy Scout they always were. It requires time. It's so important. And by adding and sprinkling these smaller moments between these characters, just adds so much more to your ship, to your ability to write romance. It is so vital, and Naruto Hinata just didn't have that. There's a reason why so many people actually enjoyed Naruto and Sakura, because with them, you actually had these smaller moments spread throughout. You then led up to the bigger moments. The only reason why Naruto and Sakura did not happen is because Kishimoto preferred Sasuke and Sakura as a ship. But they also had an issue. It's the same issue Naruto and Hinata had. They didn't have those smaller moments, mostly because Sasuke was out doing whatever it is that he was doing. So it just felt like a little weird that, it all of a sudden just ended up with them together. But those bigger moments did have a huge enough impact that Kishimoto literally was like, okay, that's good enough. Sure, you probably had more of those moments in pre-time skip, those smaller moments, but that's a reason why Sasuke and Sakura also didn't feel genuine or feel like a natural progressions, because you didn't have those smaller moments. You just went straight to the bigger moments. As much as those bigger moments are freaking amazing, make you feel giddy, make your heart race, and make you squeal, you need those smaller moments. It creates less doubt in front of not only yourself as a shipper of that ship, but it creates less doubt in just the casual reader, where it makes a lot more sense to them. Even haters will probably see it at some point in their lives, maybe through age, maybe through maturity. They'll probably see it if they reread the story. But again, it's important that these smaller moments happen throughout the manga. It is so super important, and Naruto Hinata just didn't have those. They may have some, but they weren't enough. They weren't constant. You need consistency as well as just having those smaller moments. Time, smaller moments, consistency throughout the entire story are valuable to writing a good and healthy romantic relationship. And that's what's important, because just think of like your parents, or just think of people who you saw fall in love with. A lot of the times they got to know each other. They learned about each other, and that takes time, and that's what builds a stronger relationship. Naruto Hinata didn't have that through the story of Naruto. Sure, they probably had a lot of those moments when they started dating, but you as a viewer cannot say that when you're reading a story that is pre that. You have to see it within the story. You have to see those small moments happen in order to really have a huge impact to when you decide to make them canon in your story. They just didn't have that. And that's why this is one of their major flaws, one of the major issues Naruto Hinata has. Their big moments are exceptional, but they lack the smaller moments, the consistency to help build those bigger moments to be even greater. And that is the one flaw that Naruto Hinata had. And Kishimoto always had this issue with that, to the point where a lot of the Konoha ninjas that grew up with Naruto basically just didn't have much, story writing for them throughout the entire series, except for like maybe 1, 2, 3. That's one of the reasons why, as much as like Naruto Hinata, it is not written really well throughout the entire story of Naruto. And I'm speaking mostly of the manga. The anime had fillers. There's no question that if you add the fillers from the Naruto anime, you may have a much bigger case. But when you're talking about just manga specifically, there's so much more that could have been done. There's so much more that could have been sprinkled in. And I don't like this thought process that the author had no place to put any of that stuff. I think that's ridiculous. He definitely could have. I think authors definitely have the perfect opportunity to do that within like at least 1 or 2 chapters where like they have just like some sort of interaction with them. They definitely can. I get it, it's a shonen series, and I get that I shouldn't be, creating this sort of like analysis over a shonen series, because a lot of shonen series don't necessarily have great romance, but romance is very easy to write when you really think about the core values of what you need. You need time, you need to build a foundation of just starting them off as friends and building those smaller moments, making those big moments, and just eventually having that moment where they eventually become canon. That is as simple as it can get. It's basically just writing a story of them just growing together emotionally. If you want to read a good story or essentially a good shonen series that actually had a great and proper build up for a romance, I highly recommend Blue Exorcist. It is really well written. I highly recommend just observing Blue Exorcist and how the romance writing is written, because it's showcases a lot about how well those small moments sprinkled throughout make those bigger moments more impactful. And Naruto and Hinata just didn't have that. The more time these two characters spend, the more they can grow together, the more their emotional bond can grow, the more smaller moments they have make those bigger moments more impactful. And you could see that progression in real time. It becomes natural. Natural buildup of a relationship is very important to the story of any sort of romance writing. Naruto Hinata, as great as the ship is in general, I just do not think it was written well, and partly to blame is Kishimoto's writing in general. As much as the last Naruto movie did well for the ship and showcasing just how they became canon and that progression, it shouldn't have been left to a movie. It should have been sprinkled throughout the story and at the end. If you disagree with my take and my opinion about how romance writing can and should be written, that's perfectly fine. If you disagree with me on certain things, maybe there are moments that I missed that I just don't remember, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye bye.